Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing 5 games that were all fine, but frankly didn't do enough for me. They're all fine. I got a decent amount of enjoyment from playing them, as I do from playing most games, but none of these really stuck with me in a way that made me think I can recommend that game. They're all okay, to a degree. But let's go ahead and dive into them one at a time. Timestamps as usual down below. And some of them I'll be opening the boxes, some of them not, as I try to give you a general overview of how it plays. Starting off with one I will not be opening the box for, which is Somnia, because I can show you the back of the box, and that would show you everything I need to know, or you need to know. Somnia is going to be a solo or cooperative game which you're trying to escape. You're going to be controlling a variety of characters in the game, and the characters are all going to have different chains, hence the whole Somnia. You're trapped in a dream, so to speak, and you have to break free, and there's a whole thematic aspect behind it. But the general idea is you're laying out rooms, you're trying to get to the end of the sequence of rooms so you can actually go ahead and solve all the nightmares and dreams and things in the way and ultimately escape. The main problem I had with it is that most of it comes down to a lot of dice rolling and skill checks in the game, and what it doesn't do enough interesting to keep me interested. You'll see over here that you have different rooms, and they all have different skill checks you're going to be doing based against certain attributes you have, and then as you fail things, or as you solve these nightmares, you're adding chains to your character that you then have to get rid of. And the problem with chains is it has a mechanic that I don't love in games, which is cascading failure. The idea being that as you add chains to your character, you reduce the number of actions you have every turn. You can see that number slowly going down lower and lower, so if you don't get your chains off your character fast enough, then you inherently start, dying. And most of the way you get chains off is through taking skill tests that hopefully work for you or not. The overall game, fun. I enjoyed it. I've had fun going through this, but it's one where the combination of cascading failure plus going through, a ton of rooms, like 20 different rooms of skill test after skill test after skill test, and just rolling dice against your stats again and again, meant that I think that this is an interesting theme and a decent game, but I don't think it really did that much new or interesting. The main mechanic is just trying to solve these things by taking skill tests and rolling a lot of dice while being mindful of your chains along the way. It was fine and didn't do enough. From there we have Corral over here. Now this one I think I will pull out the box over here. Actually you do, you know what, maybe not. Maybe we'll just go ahead and, I don't know if we'll see what we'll do over here. But Corral over here, this is coming to you from Two Tomatoes Games, and this is a, how do you describe this? This is a abstract game of placing down different pieces of coral. Did I call it corral? Did I call it corral? Coral. By placing coral down into your reef, basically you're going to have these blocks over here that are placing down, and as you put blocks down, you have your little token that goes on top, and that's going to determine where you can place blocks. The ultimate goal in the game is that when you get to the end of the game, you want to take a surface kind of view of the board and see who has the most exposed surface of their color. And so you're trying to place blocks down into this grid, being mindful of the placement of a token, and then alternating between placing blocks or moving it. And to be clear, when I say alternating, I mean the two actions you can take is you can place down a block, or you can move your piece to a new area on the board, following certain movement restrictions and rules, so that you can most efficiently place down new blocks that will, when you place that new block down, it will give you the most exposure and or cover up other players' colors, so that by the time you get to the end of the board, you look down and you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of white, and you can see the white has the majority view over here. That is until yellow comes along and manages to put a block down on top of them, taking over that control. It's an abstract game of placing down these, basically these all little Tetris-y shapes. It's all the exact same shape, by the way. They're not, no variance to the shapes. And that might be part of the problem with it. For me, I thought that the abstract nature of what it's doing gives you a fairly direct puzzle of what you're trying to do, but I never found it overly compelling. When I compare this against other abstract games, again, had fun with it, enjoyed, but when I compare it against other abstract games, those make me really think like there's more of a puzzle going on, and this one seemed a little bit more two-dimensional, despite the fact that it's literally a three-dimensional grid. The actual gameplay felt a little bit more two-dimensional and didn't pull me in enough with the decision-making. It's one that, again, played, enjoyed, never need to play it again, and that's totally fine with me. Let's go to Surrealist as a midway point over here. Surrealist is going to be, I think, the only one on this list that I actively didn't enjoy. And that might be a little too harsh. It's not that I didn't enjoy it. Let's explain. But I will say the rest of these games I enjoyed, but I just don't feel the need to keep playing. I think they're fine, but they didn't impress me in any way. Surrealist is one that I found. And this is one where, ironically, this might be one of the better games almost as a result, but maybe I just didn't see the puzzle or didn't feel the sense of the puzzle. But in Surrealist, you're managing a bunch of, you're managing a dinner party with a bunch of guests, famous Surrealists from history, I believe. We have Merritt Oppenheim, Salvador Dali, Ted Jones, various people in history. But the general idea is your guests have certain restrictions, or not restrictions, requirements of what they're trying to gather in the game. That little question mark is wild, anything. But then you want wine, or you want the lobster over here. But then guests also want either compliments or strife. I can't remember if it's called strife or insults. I think it's called insults and compliments in the game. So you have characters who want to be complimented, you have characters who want insults, you have characters who want certain food courses. Across the 6 courses of food you're going to be serving in the game, you alternate between playing down cards in the game, or taking actions on cards to be able to, or taking actions to take different tokens, and then possibly insulting or complimenting other guests to your left or to your right, and that includes other players. So I can go ahead and I can insult another guest, which might work for me because it'll put tokens on my guest that wants insults, but it'll clog up your guest with insult tokens that don't help you because you don't want insults. But you can counter that by placing down a guest that wants insults next to it, kind of providing a buffer. You're like, oh, you want to be a controversial dinner guest person? Well, great, I'll throw down a controversial dinner guest person next to you so that when you insult each other, you're actually helping me instead of hurting me. And you're trying to combine that with various abilities in the game, while being mindful that every single round across these 6 courses, you're placing tokens down into this very nice metal tray, by the way, but you're putting tokens down to the tray that then players are going to be taking and putting onto the board, and then once per course, you can go ahead and trigger all the actions of your guests to be able to take their actions, which can help you convert tokens to ones that you need, or get rid of tokens, or swap around food in different ways. Overall, to me, the core puzzle is 6 rounds of play, playing guests and or taking tokens and or trading insults or compliments in a way that is designed to get you having as much tokens as possible, and hopefully you're playing with the little module that gives you these cards that are effectively goals to go for, which I think only gives you more reason to play and try different strategies and different things. But ultimately for me, I felt that when you start the game, you have a hand of guests, and trying to figure out the pattern of what I could do that made the most sense for me, I didn't see that pattern. And I don't know how to classify that. Sometimes when you don't see a pattern, it's like, well, you know, I might be playing, let's pick a game I like. Let's say Lost Winds of Arnak. When I play a game like Lost Winds of Arnak, there's a puzzle at play, and to me, the process of trying to find the most efficient way to get to the puzzle, I enjoy and I like it, and I can see enough of the threads of the pathway that everything else is about trying to optimize around that pathway. And when you don't see that pathway in a game, when you don't see as clear of a direction from how to get to point A to point B, sometimes it's because there's enough strategy and things going on in the game that there's just, you have to keep playing it, you try to find it, you have to like learn what it is. Other times it's because it's a little bit too vague. It's because there isn't really a clear trail, and I felt in Surrealist Dinner Party that it didn't feel like there was a clear trail as far as the things you can do to do better at the game. It felt like just grabbing tokens and kind of hoping it all worked out. And again, this might be the best game of the bunch. For me, it's the only one from these games that I didn't enjoy, as opposed to just like enjoying but wanting more from it. So Surrealist Dinner Party, it's fine. Oh, by the way, ratings ratings for Chain Somnia was a 3 out of 5. I don't feel the need to play it again. Coral, 3 out of 5. Surrealist Dinner Party for me is going to be a 2.5 out of 5. It might be a better game for you. Arguably, it might be the best game of the bunch. But for me, it was the least enjoyable experience. Which brings us to Wonder Woods. Wonder Woods from Blue Orange Games is a game of trying to figure out your action economy, how much information you want to reveal to players, and trying to predict and gather mushrooms of the most desired variant. Basically, you're going to have these mushroom patches in the game. You have different mushroom patches in play, and each mushroom patch has a value between 1 to 7, or more specifically, it's 1, 3, 5, or 7 are the possible options. But you don't know which one that is. Before the game begins, you're going to tuck a card under each patch that defines its value. And to be very clear, all of them could be 7s, all of them could be 1s. It's not like there's a 1, 3, 5, or 7 you're trying to figure it out. They all have potential values of 1, 3, 5, or 7. Now, you're going to be distributing cards to the players in play, and putting a card underneath the patch. The card underneath the patch determines its value. The cards the players have is information. So if I have, let's just pick the blue mushrooms. If I have the 1 of the blue mushrooms, I know that at the very least, it's at least a 3 or higher. But maybe it's a 3, maybe it's a 5, maybe it's a 7. I'm not really sure. It could be any of those 3, and that's where the other players come into play. Because the first round of play, you're placing down your little, containers, whatever you want to call them, baskets. You're placing down your baskets on these patches in order to gather mushrooms. The first person to go to a spot has the least baskets required. So, okay, 1, 2, then 3, then 4 baskets as you try to gather these mushrooms. And when a player can no longer gather mushrooms, that's going to be it. That's the round over when all the players can no longer do so. So you're gathering these different mushrooms, trying to be mindful of what other players are going for, and what you're going for, because and the information you have. Because again, I might know that the blue mushroom is not worth 1, but if somebody else is aggressively grabbing blues, maybe they have the 3 and they know it's not worth 3, or maybe better yet, I have the 3 and I know that they're going for a certain color because they have the 1, so they know it's at least worth 3. But now I know it's worth at least 5 because if I can predict around your movements there, and so it ultimately results in a game where you're trying to trade these baskets in. Now at the end of each round, you can try to give information to the other players in order to gather more baskets. So basically you can say, I want the other basket. There's a few extra baskets you don't start the game with. I want more baskets, effectively more buying power. And in order to get those baskets, I'm going to show everyone that I have the 5 of the red mushroom. They're not really red, I'm just making it simple here. So you're going to play the 5 of the red mushrooms as information that you're sharing with the other players at the table. Now that could help dissuade them or push them in different directions. Maybe now suddenly the red mushrooms aren't as desirable because unless it's a 7, it's probably a 1 or a 3. And so again, it's a game about trying to reveal information slowly, having a degree of information yourself, and then trying to manage and combine all of that into a puzzle that involves you gathering mushrooms. I enjoyed it. But I feel there's a lot of games out there that do this kind of thing. And I think they're generally a lot better. This is a fun little gateway game, but it's a fun little gateway game that if you enjoy it, awesome, have a good time, but it's not a game that I think of, hey, I'm going to recommend this, or I'm going to pull it out and play again. It's a game that does a fairly simple thing in a way that's been done better by other games time and time again. It doesn't add enough new to the table. It doesn't add production quality, charm. It adds accessibility, perhaps. I mean, it's an easy game to dive into, but I just think there are many amazing gateway games out there from Blue Orange themselves who have some great games. This was fun, but not one that I see becoming a staple in any way, shape, or form. Certainly not in my collection. Again, another 3 out of 5. A good game, but no second thoughts. In general, to me, 3 out of 5, the difference between once you go below a 3, at that point, you're kind of moving into something, like I didn't enjoy my experience at that point, so it's shifting that direction. And above a 3 has those qualms of, like, a 3.5 has the twinge of, I kind of want to play it again, I just might not because there's so many games. But these are all games that I will not play again, and I have no twinges whatsoever. Kamigami Battles, Rise of the Old Ones. I actually was looking forward to this one a bit. And it's interesting, because this is from Japanime Games, and this leans very heavily into, I don't know if there's a correct term to put this, I'm just going to say over-sexualized art, okay? So it's a style that Japanime Games has a lot of games that do that, and if that's your jam, totally fine. For me, it's not something that will push me away from a game. Well, it's not entirely true. It'll push me away a drop from a game. So if I'm directly in the middle for most games, like over-sexualized art puts me a drop away, but if it's a good game, I'll still go ahead and get the game. There are some games, like Madara. Madara is a good example of a game that I'm hoping I'll like it, and it definitely has that over-sexualized style. But in the case of this one is a deck builder that, to me, is uninspiring, and the thing it does do that's interesting didn't work out that great. Now, it's not bad. Again, I still had fun playing through this one. It's got a classic card market in play. You're basically playing as various elder gods. So you have these elder gods, and again, with a mix of the over-sexualized artwork. And so you have these elder gods, and you have these locations in play, which you don't have to play with, but you should play with. It makes the game better. And you're trying to basically reduce your opponent's something. I don't know, the purple tokens. I don't know what you're reducing. Power, influence, whatever it is you're reducing. You start with 15 on your god, 5 on your location, and then throughout the course of the game you can add or take away from, you can add to your own or take away from others, and if you get to 25, you win, which is hard to do from what I've seen. If you knock your opponent down to 0, and you're the last person standing, you win. You can play this as a 1 versus 1, you can play this as a free-for-all, a team mode, there's a whole bunch of ways to play through it. But throughout the course of the game, you're buying cards from a card market because you're playing a deck builder. You start with 8 of the level 1 disciples, 2 of the level 2 disciples, and you're effectively trying to build out a better deck through the buying artifacts and warriors and or more disciples. That's where you have these cards over here. So we have these various, that's going to be a disciple over here, that's going to be a warrior, and that's going to be an artifact in the game. And you're trying to buy these, and they have this interesting chaining system where normally, by default, you can play as many disciples as you want in a turn. But if you want to play warriors or artifacts, you can play 1 unless you chain them. Meaning that artifact is the moon or the gray, and it chains to yellow or blue. So if I had a yellow or blue artifact, I can play it after I play that one because of the chaining aspect. And so you're trying to build out your deck. The chaining was the part that I thought was interesting. The core actions past that, it's fine. It's not bad. Again, I had fun playing this. It's just, in the world of so many amazing deck builders, the core deck building game just isn't that inspiring. Play Star Realms, play Shards of Infinity, play Ascension, play Dominion. There's so many great deck builders that have done so much in the space that I think what this one does, the most interesting thing it potentially brought to the table was the chaining. And I think that was actually that was done by Nightfall from AEG quite some time ago. I actually really like Nightfall. It's not rated that well, but it's a deck builder that the chaining there kind of worked for me. The rest of it was good, but the chaining was really well done. Over here, I find the chaining just doesn't really sync well with the nature of the cards coming out and how you build out your deck. You kind of have to buy what's available for the most part, and you can try to plan around a certain amount of chaining, but it's usually very hard to really reliably predict in it, which kind of makes it feel like a deck builder that is good, adds a little interesting twist, but the interesting twist doesn't result in a better game. If anything, it results in a worse game. And past that, you're left with a deck building game that was still fun, but didn't really impress me overall. I think if you're looking at this for the theme or the art or all that, then you will have a fun time. I think this is a fun game, and again, I enjoyed it, but it didn't do anything new for me, and the theme and art for me is definitely not a draw. If anything, a slight push away from my desire to own and continue playing this. And that's basically what we have over here. We have 5 games that, for me, I've played them all. They're fine. I can't really recommend them, but you might have a fun time playing them. They're going to be Chain Somnia, Coral, Wonder Woods, Kamigami Battles, Rise of the Old Ones. By the way, this is an entire series as well, just for the record. I've just only played this particular one in the series. And then Surrealist Dinner Party. And those are 5 quick reviews of 5 games that were totally fine and overall just didn't impress. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.